Hey everybody, it's Mr. Marshall here with another review on U.S. history. This one we're going to be doing on geography, going from the original 13 colonies and then expanding to the west until we get all of these great states. We go from one ocean to the other, and at the same time we pick up Alaska, we grab Hawaii, we get a couple other small territories. And we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. As with other reviews, when you see the pencil, it's more important for the essays, even though it does show up multiple choice. The Regents really stresses it more in that area. And with the star, it's really focusing on the multiple choice instead of the essays. So a good thing to keep in mind as we're going through. So here we go. The first thing to keep in mind from like way back in September, the beginning of the course, is that we were a colony. And England kind of controlled us, and this was the geography of the time, which was this triangle trade. We existed just to benefit the mother country. That's what mercantilism was. And they would grab all of our raw materials, all the tobacco, all the cotton, all the raccoons, and so that they could turn their furs into hats and stuff, and all the huge trees that we have, and bring them over to England, turn them into manufactured goods, down to Africa, grab slaves, come over here, and then just keep on doing this over and over and over again. That was the big thing at the time. Then a couple other things to remember from earlier on is when we were still colonies, we had the Proclamation of 1763, which is where the British told us we couldn't move past the Appalachian Mountains. We had to stay in this tiny little area. They didn't want us pushing past and getting into conflict with the French or getting into conflict with the Indians. They didn't want to have to pay for those wars. It ends up happening anyway with the French-Indian War, but they didn't really want to deal with it until they had to. Then once we fight the American Revolutionary War and we win, yay! Then we're able to go to the Mississippi River, we get the Northwest Territory, we start organizing into states. Okay? And then the next big territorial gain is the Louisiana Purchase. And if you guys remember, that was all about Jefferson, the redhead, who purchased it from France, but and the Regents loves this whole loose and strict interpretation thing, because even though Jefferson had a very strict interpretation of the Constitution, he kind of loosened his viewpoints so that he'd be able to jump on this purchase as quickly as he can and pick it up for America, because it was exactly what we needed. It gave us the complete control of the Mississippi River, which was ridiculously important, and it doubled the size of our country, and we got tons and tons of natural resources out of it. It was so incredibly important. And the way he figured out what was there was the Lewis and Clark expedition. Because now that we have the land, we got to figure out what's there. What's there that we can use? What's there? Are there gold mines? Which there were. Where are they? How do we use this new stuff? And so he sends the Lewis and Clark expedition out there, and they figure it out. And then a little bit after that, we get Florida from Spain, which we just kind of get it from them. The Regents doesn't really focus on that too much, but they do care a whole lot about the Louisiana Purchase. Okay. And here's just a quick map of what we have so far. So the original 13 colonies are right over here. We couldn't move past the Appalachian Mountains, which are about in this section. And then once we win the Revolutionary War, we push it to the Mississippi River, and with the Louisiana Purchase, we double the size. Okay. And then the next big thing is Manifest Destiny, and this is a very famous painting, picture type thing about America moving to the west, taking the light of civilization and banishing the darkness as we go forward. Shows up all over the place. And what Manifest Destiny was the belief that the United States should control all land between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. That's a huge thing. And we really use that idea to justify us getting all this land, because, there were people on it, there were Native Americans. So we were like, no, it should be ours. God means it to be that way. And we kind of use that to justify our actions. And that was really the way that the American people felt, and it reflected in the politicians that we elected. James K. Polk, he ran on a platform of just getting more land. And then that's when we start picking up all this other stuff, the Mexican cession, the Texas annexation, the Oregon cession. Right? And with the Texas annexation, they were actually a state before they joined, they were own country before they became a state in the United States. Okay? It greatly increased the size of America, but we also got this border dispute with Mexico, which is going to actually lead into the Mexican-American War, but we were completely fine with that. Because Texas, they were like, yeah, we got this land, that's ours. This land all here is disputed. Both Mexico and Texas said that that's theirs. And that's what eventually leads to the Mexican-American War, which we win. We knew we would. That's why we were fine with picking the fight. And we get the Mexican cession out of it, which was a huge amount of land. We got all these different states: California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, California, New Mexico. But the big one is California, because of the huge coastline that it had, and because eventually, even though they didn't know at the time, there's tons and tons of gold there. And right here you have a little map of the Mexican cessions showing a lot of the different states that we got out of it. Some of the other important little things that we get, but they don't show up quite so often on the Regents, is the Gadsden Purchase, which we just picked up this tiny little piece down here a little bit after the Mexican-American War, which we mainly purposed because we thought it'd be good to put a railroad there. And the Oregon Cession, which gave us this little section right here of Washington, Oregon, and it also set that parallel as the border with Canada. This right here is just a little graphic that kind of shows you the dates and when we end up grabbing each of these different things, just a little animation. Okay? Guys, feel free to pause and drag the video back to take a look at it multiple times, because it is really, really neat. Okay? And I'm colorblind, so I know that they're different colors, but I don't know what they are. This darker blue is when they become a state, and when it's the lighter blue, that's when it's a territory. It isn't completely organized yet. Okay. The last two states that we get is Alaska and Hawaii. And Alaska we pick up, and we buy it for incredibly cheap, 2 cents per acre, but it was just so incredibly huge that it was a ton of money, and it was very controversial at the time. Nowadays we're very glad we did it because of the oil there. And then Hawaii, which is, down here in Pacific Ocean, we got that mainly for economic and military reasons. The military reason was because we can put naval bases there, Pearl Harbor from World War II, I'm sure you guys remember, and it extends our influence. It was originally a refueling station, right? So, an incredibly important state. And that's it for this